laws for about a year, and she's going to tell us a lot more about that. And this is a follow-up to the presentation that we had last week, where we talked about the other side of the coin for this discussion. And so, Bethany, you take the stage.
Sure. No, but I'm going to stand here and it is being recorded. So if you'd like to be a star of the show, you're welcome to stay. But
Pick your nose, Jay.
Probably broke already.
So thanks for having me. BJ is extremely sorry he couldn't be here. I'll get into why in a bit because it's all about why we're involved in this in the first place. So I apologize up front. I am totally winging it, and he would have done a really good job, and I feel bad that this isn't the presentation you guys deserve, but I'm going to do my best. So I was promised no one would throw rocks at me, so hopefully you can all hold to that.
It's early.
So we'll see. Okay, so the big thing is, you know, like Sue said, the National Organization for Reform of Marijuana Laws, we're the Wyoming chapter. And about a year ago, this petition that you may have heard about, the Peggy A. Kelly Act for Cannabis Act of 2016 has been going around. What that is it is a petition to get on the ballot the option to legalize medical cannabis and industrial hemp. There's no recreational provision whatsoever. And so, and it's still alive and well. We have another year to gather enough signatures for it to go on the 2018 ballot. So we believe we have the support of the people. There's a poll that UW did of landline only that showed that 72% of Wyoming residents favor some sort of medical provision. And so we just have to, you know, get the votes to get it on the ballot and see where we can go from there. So let's beat a dead horse. The industrial hemp is non-psychoactive. There's no part of that that has any sort of high or anything like that. It would be a great crop in Wyoming. It would grow well. It's a low input crop, and there's a wide variety of products that can be made with hemp, and it's extremely what do you call it when renewable? It's very renewable. It's quickly renewable. It's can be made in clothing, paper goods, all these other items that you see here. As far as the medical aspect goes, you hear that it's there's no research or there's no proof that it really helps, and I mean I beg to differ, and I've seen it in personal observation as well as many studies and documentaries and journal articles, and I mean we could spend an hour on each one of these and showing you. Sorry, I'm going to take a deep breath. Well, I'm going to hyperventilate up here.
It's fine.
Inhale.
Yeah, inhale.
Okay, good one. All right, so anyway, you can see up here, I believe personally that there is proof and evidence out there for a significant help for all of these things listed and more. And you can see things that are major life-altering diseases up here, cancer, AIDS, seizures. Seizures is one of the ones that I've been fascinated with you know, studies and stories that I've heard from personal acquaintances, children that have seizures, and there's ways that the oils can be used to help stop those and give a child an actual more normal life. And I guess the point of this slide is, you know, if it really does help these things, and you know, you look at this, and I bet there's not a person in the room that would not be able to say, hey, I know somebody with cancer or chronic pain or sleeplessness. I mean, all of us have some sort of level of anxiety or depression, something or somebody we know, and so I mean the uses are widespread, and the problem with the studies being out there, you know, you hear, well, there's no studies, it needs to be studied more. I think the answer is yes and no to that. There is an online website called PubMed. I'm supposed to be looking at my notes so I can tell you more about it, but I don't know where I put them. So what I do know is that you can go online and search PubMed, and it's a national repository for all sorts of medical research. And you know, just for fun, we typed in these various words up here, and just to see how many hits it got, how many results. And you know, marijuana comes up with over 22,000, and cannabis 14,000, THC, which is the major psychoactive component of marijuana and has also been studied a lot, 8,000. You know, and you look down at some of these FDA approved, widely used, widely prescribed things, and they come up, you know, 18,000 acetaminophen. I mean, that's a lot, but we've got just as many for marijuana up there. So when people say that there's no studies, I just disagree. I think that governmental approved studies are tough because it's been illegal in the United States, but there are a lot of studies and documentaries that have been done outside of the United States for a long time, and now that it's becoming legal in more and more states, more and more studies are coming out on it. So, let's see. What about the children? Obviously, we don't want to negatively impact our youth, and the first point there is there's been a study, a major study done on states that have a level of legal medical marijuana, and then, you know, similarly demographic and situated states that don't have any medical. And what they show is that there is no significant increase in adolescent use. You know, in Colorado, after the first full year of legal recreational, and that's recreational, not medical, which is what we're really talking about today, youth use did not statistically increase by the end of 2014. And just a little side note, this is BJ's presentation, he worked hard on it, and there are references all the way throughout, and if anybody wants a copy, you know, let me know. I can email the slides to you if you're interested in learning more. The other big concern does it make our highways more dangerous? Is there more traffic fatalities, more crashes? The same study that compared states with medical and without medical also found that they actually found a decrease in traffic fatalities and alcohol-related roadway deaths in states with medical cannabis. In Colorado, that second point there, the DUI, DUID, which is under the influence of drugs, I believe, I learned that. The crashes fell between 2011 and 14 when it was then fully legal, by 6% in the number of crashes there, and 2.2% decrease in percent of total crashes. And then the NHTSA, which is the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, did a huge study on data across the nation, showing that cannabis use did not increase crash risk. So this table is from that study that I just mentioned, the NHTSA study. And the main point here, what it's doing is it's taking a baseline sober driver and making it a 1. So any average sober driver out there has a risk of 1 of being in a crash. And then these other, if you're under the influence of any of these other substances here, marijuana being at the top, THC specifically, then this is your increase or decrease in rate crash risk. The first table there is adjusted for demographic variables, because we all know there's a difference in age. You know, younger and older people are more likely to crash. And so adjusted for age, gender, and race, there is a slight increase. You see the 1.05 for THC, but it's not significant. And if you know about statistics, that second column makes a lot of sense to you. And it just, what that means is it's not a significant increase. And the even more interesting thing is on the second table, if you then also adjust for alcohol use, then the THC risk rate is even. It's even with baseline. There's no increase at all shown. And you know, you can look at these other things, narcotic type things increase. Stimulants and antidepressants actually decrease your risk. So anyway, it's, you know, it's right on par with legal drugs there, really, if you look at that bottom line compared to the top line. So, okay, that's a lot of talk about, is it going to cause deaths? Well, what about deaths that could actually prevent? And so the point here on this slide is, in the most at-risk demographic for suicides, they found that with medical marijuana, they have seen a 10% decrease in successful suicides. And so, you know, Wyoming, as I'm sure a lot of you are aware, that we have, I believe it's the highest percentage of suicides of any of the states. And so we're talking 100 suicides a year. And so if, you know, if what we've seen in other states is true here, we save 10 people a year from suicide alone. And then you also can add to that people that can get off opiates and get off their addiction to opiates. I mean, that is a dangerous, dangerous drug. And I can't tell you how many people we've talked to personally in doing this petition that knows somebody that's addicted to it, or even have lost loved ones. And just that the possibility of helping save those lives, giving people an option. And you know, even if it's not for everybody, I think it's a really important option for people to have, and that people should be able to make the choice to use cannabis instead of those drugs that are prescribed. Okay, so, well, why do we need this other drug? You know, why do we need another drug? Don't we have enough FDA approved pharmaceuticals? Well, I'm gonna get a little personal here. This table, along with the next page, are things that BJ, my husband, experiences every single day, and we're talking severe. Like, that is why he's not here today. And so his main thing, and it doesn't sound life-threatening, because it really isn't, but his main thing is just chronic digestive problems, and it's IBS, it's dyspepsia, and a variety of other digestive issues, allergies, things like that. But he has a very severe case, and you know, if he could have made it here today, he'd be here. I mean, he wanted to come, this is important to him, and he was very grateful for the opportunity to come, so. Sorry. It's a passionate issue. So pain, nausea, muscle spasticity, poor digestion, insomnia, depression, anxiety, lack of appetite. These are all things that he struggles with daily, and he's been to doctors, and they prescribe him drugs. I mean, there's nothing else to do. There's nothing else to do for him except prescribe drugs, and he's tried some. And let me tell you, he gets all these side effects. He gets the side effects with not very much help. And you look at these side effects and, death, overdose, addiction, dizziness, vomiting, seizures, kidney problems, heart problems. And then in making this table, he visited with a pharmacist friend of ours and helped him kind of complete the table. And an interesting comment he made was that, somebody that has all these symptoms, 6 to 10 of these big symptoms, it's like you could take one of these drugs and maybe help one of them, but you'd be lucky to take 2 if you worked up your resistance. And no way are you going to be able to take all those drugs to combat all the symptoms. And then you're likely going to be dealing with either an increase in one of your other symptoms. You take something for insomnia and you're risking higher depression, things like that. So for BJ, this is, it's a difficult daily struggle. And the thing about cannabis is it, to some significant degree, helps all of these symptoms. And he's been down to Colorado and he's tried it out down there, and I've observed. And yeah, there are some side effects possibly for cannabis. Anxiety, you might experience an increased heart rate, dizziness, grogginess, changes in perception. But for him and many other people, this is just far more acceptable than the other options. And the other thing is, even though it's hard to maybe quantify, you can based on picking the right strain and working with your own body and getting to know what helps you, you can mitigate those side effects. And so I think I'm out of time mostly. I just want to say quickly about rec, if you want to talk recreationally, because everybody brings that into the discussion, because obviously we're forward thinking, and like they said last week, it's gonna be come in front of you as voters at some point. And so we want people to be educated as well. And the governor of Colorado started out extremely against it when they legalized it. He mentioned, he said at one point that if he had a magic wand, he would reverse the decision, take it away. He didn't want to do it. He thought it was bad for the state, and after a couple years now, he's just 180 degrees. And so here's a couple quotes, and I believe there's reference down there, but I believe it's from an interview this fall, where he says, "It would serve people better to have a sense of proportion. The sky isn't falling. People thought it was the end of the civilization as they know it. It wasn't." I don't know about all the numbers about how it falls out, but the numbers we can find say that there is money being funded into school, construction, law enforcement, like earmarked for that, because they made so much over the last few years that that they have this extra that they voted to either put it into these programs or give it back, and they voted to put it into these things here in Colorado. So, time will tell how that all works out, and I think it's a benefit for Wyoming that we can see what they've done and look at the downfalls they've worked through. It's difficult. It's not an easy implementation at all. But as you can see, it's really personal for me, and we started out into it on a personal level, and the more I talk to people and hear their stories, I'm just more and more convinced. I was convinced to begin with, but I'm convinced that it's something that will benefit people. And you know, if there's one thing I want you to maybe remember is that this isn't just people, it's not a fringe of society that's anti-establishment. I mean, teachers, pharmacists, CPAs, I mean, these are churchgoers, parents, people in your community that are responsible people, intelligent, well-educated, that think this is a good idea. And so, you know, I just ask that you keep your mind open. If you do have questions beyond what we can get done today, you can see me. I can get you in contact with BJ, or I can answer what I know, which is not a lot. I do have the petition. You're welcome to sign today. If you're interested, you're welcome to contact me at my office. I'll keep it confidential if you're worried about that. And I think that's it. So questions, Jack?
I have a couple questions. So, if it's medical marijuana, will this be dealt out by a physician with prescription and taken to a pharmacist? Or will this be like Billings, where every corner had a guy selling marijuana for medical use, which didn't work out at all? Also, you know, I camp on the North Fork a lot. I don't want to be walking through the woods to go fishing and find some guy with a 3-acre plot of marijuana growing in the middle of the forest.
So-
You might find that anyway.
So,
I mean, I'm gonna
Tell me
say,
you find it.
I've been in Hawaii
You found my plot?
so, okay,
I've been
so,
to Hawaii 3 times, and there's marijuana growing everywhere in the jungle.
So I can't tell you exactly what it will look like in Wyoming. I can tell you that in Colorado, and I've been there, I've visited the dispensaries, it's very business-like. I mean, the industry is eager to establish themselves as legitimate. It's highly regulated. You have to, I mean, it's a huge process to get a license, and it's very regular. There's a whole group of people that go in and regulate. And no, you can't just, you have to have a license to grow it like that. And I don't know the exact rules about how many you're allowed to have and all that, but there would be regulations. It's not like everybody, you know, that's the short answer.
But Colorado is pretty loose. My kids lived in Loveland, and I would stop there to get gas once in a while, and sitting on top of the gas pump is a can of power drink laced with marijuana that you could go in there and buy. You know, and as far as money going into the coffers to build schools and all, that's what they said when they built casinos in Atlantic City. Oh, this is going to be great. We're gonna do.
Jack, do you have a question for Bethany?
I think some other people might have some questions. I saw a couple of hands. Anybody else? Roger?
Is the only way marijuana is administered as a drug is to treat illness or something? Is that smoking the only way?
Good question. No. So that is a way. Some people prefer it because they can more easily self-regulate how much you're getting. But there's also edibles, which is sort of a controversial also part of it, because it's harder to know as the consumer how much you're getting in an edible, meaning you know, cookies, brownies. I saw an old woman in Colorado getting gummy bears. She got she had a weekly prescription for gummy bears for her pain management. So no, there's other ways. The other big one is CBD oil, which is the extracted oil, and there's various ways you can take that. You can either vaporize it and inhale it, and you'll still get some of the psychoactive or high effect from that. But you can also ingest it other ways where there's actually no high factor from it. So that's a good question. In fact, there's some studies done on cancer treatments that are with the CBD oil, and you got to take a lot of it for it to help. And
Okay,
anyway.
guys, we could go on for hours.
Yeah.
One more question, we're gonna have to shut it off
Okay.
at 1 o'clock.
Alan.
I have a question about the industrial hemp that you talked about. it sounds like maybe it's illegal to have industrial hemp now on private property?
Yeah,
Because North Dakota is covered with it, it's part of the war effort, you know, they raised hemp to make rope for the war.
yeah.
And it's just exists everywhere.
Carrie, do you know any more about that? About industrial hemp, the legality of it?
Well, in Wyoming, CBD oil, which comes from hemp, is legal for seizure patients, but they did not make it legal to produce that here in Wyoming. So hemp is not able to be.
Across the nation, I'm not sure what all the laws are. I mean, I get clothes that are made of hemp, so I mean, maybe it's grown somewhere else. I'm not sure. And I don't know why it's illegal exactly. I think it's partly the stigma and the relative to the other.
Okay,
But,
thank you.
sorry. That's all right.
Well, thank you, Bethany, BJ, and Carrie. Very interesting topic. Unfortunately, in the interest of time, we are going to have to wrap this up. Do we have any good news today? Nobody has any good news.
So the end of December, I took a little spill and ended up in West Park Hospital. And it came through the door, 3 broken ribs and a punctured lung. It was not good. So the first thing I asked for was medical marijuana. They said no. But I told them I know people, mentioned Doug's name, they still said no. But that was just a fabulous experience. We have a good thing going. Kept me overnight, and it was turned out to be really positive. So here's a buck for West Park Hospital.